Welcome to the podcast, The Bishop Exchange. This week it's coming from 3 different countries because I'm in Mallorca in Spain, Des is in Las Vegas in America, and Bradley is in his mum's kitchen in Liverpool. In fact, I've said that, I've made that up, Brad. You may not be in your mum's kitchen, but it'll do. The images, the contrast is perfect.
Bradley, so this is without doubt the highest quality picture of your face that we've had. You're really
also,
killing
Bradley,
it today.
You're not wearing black.
I thought today I'd do a little autumnal vibe because it feels like the autumn's coming in.
Oh, right.
Well, not where I am.
Me neither. Look, I'm being blinded by the sun. It's the only light I could get in here.
So you're in Vegas doing the cellar,
Doing the comedy cellar, Vegas. Yeah, it's all right.
And is it started? How many nights do you do when you do it?
You do 7. You do a full week here.
7?
You could be destitute by the time you leave.
Wow.
You could lose every penny that you make here by the time you leave. Except, when I first started doing these Vegas shows, I used to play a bit of blackjack. But, when you play blackjack once every 3 or 4 years, it's fun. When you start doing like a lot of different shows in casinos throughout the year and you're in a casino 4 or 5 times a year, blackjack's just not fun anymore. Because you never win a lot of money, you never lose a lot of money. It's just like, what's the point? I'll just do something else.
Yeah, but so you see all those people on the mobility scooters feeding, breathing through the neck, talking with the microphone on the neck, smoking, going, I'm gonna win the big one. I'm gonna go put all the coins in. I'm gonna win the big one.
Yeah, exactly. That's why Vegas tourism is down 30% because people are. It is, yeah. Things are bad here. Listen, we can't avoid a serious topic today, but before we get into it, one of the other problems with the current state of America is that tourism in general is way down, and there's a lot of complaining here since I got here about how slow things are, like really slow. So,
you mean slow business-wise, or just services slow? I've been waiting for my coffee for ages. It used to be great. So why? What are people putting that down to?
Well, they're putting it down to Trump because people are afraid when they come here they're going to be kicked out, or they're not going to be able to get in, or they're not going to it's not the most welcoming place for foreigners.
Well, it's interesting that you say that.
And then sorry, I was just going to say, so the Canadian market is just like gone. Like Canadians are just not coming to the States, which is partially down to just like a resentment that built up for all the sort of, cantankerous back and forth that was going on. So the Canadians are gone. A lot of Europeans are afraid to come, because don't forget, there's all these reports about they check your social media when you come in, So there's just a lot of reasons why people are not coming to the States. And then, some people have economic concerns, so even some Americans aren't coming. So needless to say, Vegas tourism is down. American tourism is down in general, but Vegas is really feeling the pinch.
But I would have thought Vegas was an area where you would get a lot of the MAGA supporters.
You would think that, but it's basically like it's just across the board. MAGA people are not expressing their patriotism by coming to Vegas, So like the core sort of Vegas people, I'm sure they're still coming, but in general, it's down. I can't give any analysis beyond the fact that it's definitely down.
But what's it feel like? Because I know you were in Vegas before Vegas. You were in San Francisco, so most of the time we talk to you, you're in New York, so you get one side of the country. You've just spent time on the West Coast. Now you're in this melting pot that's Vegas, and we've all got a view of how America is doing. And obviously, he's coming over to England. He's going to come for another state visit, which is fucking embarrassing as far as I'm concerned. But he's coming, and they're going to roll out the red carpet. And everyone's saying the reason that they're going to roll out the red carpet is because whether we agree with his politics or not, Britain is now dependent more and more on America, particularly because we're not in the European Union. So we need an ally. We need somebody that we can call who's supposedly looking after our back. But everyone knows that you're dealing with a megalomaniac who basically is out for himself. Now, is that yet landing with the country? Or with the recent events of last week, are people starting to say, well, everybody who doesn't agree with him is a lunatic and they've got it wrong?
You got a lot of information into that question, John.
I know. And you know what? I'm not. I'll be honest with everybody who comes to this podcast every week, and we have a lot of we've examined farting. We've done everything from farting to loads of funny stuff. I think this week might be slightly different.
No, it has to be, man. I'm telling you right now, I've never been as despondent as I have been the last couple of days. But in direct, let me answer your question first, which began and ended with the actual question. In between, you made a very solid point about Trump's visit to the UK. But in terms of the difference, it's very hard to say because, first of all, San Francisco is very similar to New York. And then in Vegas, who can say? The only thing I can tell you about Vegas is people are complaining about the numbers. But I've only been talking to people who would generally be critical of Trump anyway. So I don't know what the average person who voted for Trump is saying in Vegas. Because, don't forget, Trump helped his Nevada win by saying no taxes on tips. And the no tax on tips thing ended up being like a little bit of a fudge. In the end, they got some sort of tax credit, but it's not really much of a thing at all. And if business is down by 30%, any benefit you thought you were going to get is gone, right? Because the businesses aren't there tipping. So you'd rather get your tip and pay a little bit of tax on it than no tax on no tips, So anyway, so I can't really tell you how much of a vibe is. All I can tell you is it's very divided. And the Charlie Kirk thing, which was just awful in so many ways. So, there's like two conversations. And the problem is that now people it's difficult to have the two separate conversations without people think you're being disrespectful to a horrible thing that happened to this man and to his family, versus the use of that horrible tragedy by MAGA, Trump supporters, the right, to sort of fast track what appears to be an authoritarian tilt in America. And I just, if you have a calm, rational discussion about what is actually happening, I find it very hard to not say at least there is an increase in authoritarianism. I just cannot see how you can argue otherwise. The way that they talk is frightening.
Yeah,
so I don't know what you're seeing. I don't know what you're seeing.
We've got a thing here in the UK. So what happened? There was a group called Palestine Action, which was objecting to what's happening in Palestine and objecting to the actions of the Israeli government. That's what was happening. So what they did, and they were objecting to the British government supporting the fact that we were selling them missiles and that we've been giving them intelligence and so on. And so they went on to an airfield, an air base where there was British jets, and they threw paint at the jets. Somehow this paint become like £7 million worth of damage or something ridiculous like that. But they basically put paint on jets. That's what they did. The British government then prescribed that group as a terrorist organisation. And by prescribing the group, it meant that anybody who supports them is liable for jail. Now, this group has never, ever in the past, according to any knowledge that I've got or anyone else has got, has ever voiced terrorist intent. They're a protest group in support of the Palestinian people. So what's happened is there's been this wave of people who have been coming out supporting Palestine Action. And the people who are doing it are pensioners, like pensioners, people 90, 80, 70, people who are going, well, we're going to, and they'll go out and and if they write on a placard, I do not support genocide, I support Palestine action, they're getting arrested.
Really?
So yeah, arrested. So like hundreds of them, like hundreds. I think something like 900 people got arrested last week. It was ridiculous for sitting with placards, for sitting with a thing written on a piece of paper, and they're doing it in I think it's by Hyde Park, where there's a statue of Gandhi, the the person who
non-violence
epitomizes non-violence objection, and they are being arrested and processed, and then the police don't even know how to deal with them because it's such a ridiculous thing that they're trying to get them. I think it's called Section 13 of the anti-terrorism law. But like, there's no terrorist threat, so you are basically arresting. I mean, I'm talking like priests, vicars, nuns. And I'm literally talking about pensioners in wheelchairs. They are arresting for holding placards. Now, if that is not a shift of authoritarianism, I don't know what is. And then what happened this weekend in the UK? There was a big march. There's a guy over there called Tommy Robinson. He's a right-winger, and there's a lot of people over here now feeling threatened over migrants and so on, and the small boats coming over. So what's happened? There was a protest. This protest got 150,000 people coming. No one knew that was going to happen. There was an anti-protest. London was blocked, and all of that's all over the news. And it's all these people who are, there's a big campaign in England now to get the Union Jack out and to the George Cross. And so driving up and down on motorways now, you'll see it hanging over bridges in a way that didn't used to happen. What's happening is people are taking very complex issues and putting them into one simple answer, which is it's the immigrants' fault. It's the illegal immigrants. This is happening because of illegal immigrants. You've got to somehow stem the tide. But it's ending up where you're getting these massive divisions in society that we haven't seen before. Both our countries have thrived on immigration. You've got to manage it, you've got to process it, but you've got to be honest about what the problem is. And the problem is somewhere else. It's not directly aiming at this simplistic answer to it.
But my issue with, I'm afraid of the Tommy Robinson people, to be honest with you. Like, they're very organized online now. And the thing is that both in America and in the UK and across Europe in general, there is very powerful people that have gotten behind what used to be fringe groups.
Yeah.
Tommy Robinson used to be...
Elon Musk sent a video message to the meeting.
No, but Elon Musk is supporting these people. He is helping he's helping to amplify their message, and two, I assume, but this is an assumption, that he's giving them some money. But without a doubt, there are very powerful people that have decided that the online angst, the division, needs to be exploited to push an agenda, which is anti-immigration. Listen, you could really tie yourself in knots about the immigration stuff. So I've never had a problem with immigration, but I can sympathize with some people's concerns about it. But what I can't sympathize with is the angry vitriol towards people as if they are the cause of all the ills in society. I'm just not, I'm never going to accept placing all the ills of what's wrong with society, the inequality, perhaps the crime, any of these issues that people are trying to pin on immigrants. It just doesn't hold up to scrutiny that immigration really makes these things worse, right? So no, I'm not going to criticize anybody that has a problem with immigration, but I'm not going to stand for exaggerating the ills that are caused by it. But anyway, my point is, it's being amplified. But my problem is, particularly in the States, with what happened with Charlie Kirk, which was just it's so upsetting, the fact that we were able to see what happened to Charlie Kirk. But the very obvious immediate action of Trump's immediate cabinet, and then the wider sort of right-wing infrastructure of the internet just pushing what really seems to be close to McCarthyism, or even worse, a crackdown on left-wing institutions. Now, I'm a left-leaning guy. In Europe, I'm a centrist, by the way. But in America, I'm left, okay? All I want is what is pretty basic in Europe. You know, access to health care, you know, a social safety net, and, you know, like a decent retirement after 65. That's really what I want. Anyway, they are now using this fucking clown, some fucking lunatic young male, which is what it always is. Some lunatic young male decided to get a gun, which is easy to do, and shoot Charlie Kirk. And now everything that I believe in is under threat, as if me and this guy had some connection. I have no connection to people that get so deeply radicalized online. Whatever way he was radicalized, which we don't even know, he has nothing to do with me. How are you putting my moderate politics on the block because of this fucking lunatic? It doesn't make any sense to me. Like, except it does make sense if this was always your agenda. You were just waiting for moments to erode at civil society to essentially what I think is push a Christian nationalist, you know, state, which is what it is. And they are now pushing this new narrative hard. This is not like paranoia. They're pushing a narrative hard that left-wing ideology is violent, fundamentally violent. They're ignoring any of the right-wing violence, the killing of the Minnesota state senator, the January 6th. The bigger one, right, which there's a lot of hypocrisy on, is a guy beating Nancy Pelosi's husband nearly to death with a hammer, which, by the way, the people that are saying that anyone that spoke ill of Charlie Kirk should be fired were literally joking about. Donald Trump Jr. posted a joke with underwear and a hammer, and they dismissed that with misinformation, saying that this guy was just a gay lover that was pissed off, and that's why he hit him with a hammer. So the double standard, hypocrisy, it's so blatantly obvious, but they have the right-wing side of the internet so on lockdown that it's just pointless even trying to bring it up, because they only want to hear what they want to hear. I mean, did you watch yesterday when they asked Trump in a press conference, why didn't you fly the flags at half-mast for the Melissa Hortman, the senator who was shot by the way, a fundamentalist Christian who had a Democratic lawmaker hit list. So he was only at the beginning of what was like non-controversially, you could say this was political violence from a right-wing lunatic to left-wing politicians, right? And I don't even like this whole right-left thing, but just because this is the way they're arguing it, you can't argue that this wasn't political violence. He literally killed a politician for being a Democrat. And he said, why didn't you fly at half-mast? And he was like, sorry, who? I don't recall that. Which, of course, he did recall. And he said he wouldn't talk to Tim Walz at the time. He said there's no point in talking to him. And then in the press conference, he was like, oh, well, if Tim Walz had asked me, I would have done it. Which is just, it's absolute bullshit. Like, it's a straight up lie, which can be debunked by showing
Tim
the shit.
Walz,
the governor of Minnesota. And he ran as the vice presidential candidate in the election, by the way.
Yeah.
But anyway, my point is that the fucking the hypocrisy is like, it's so obvious, but they don't care. They're just running with it. J.D. Vance, who is the vice president of the United States, is now doing Charlie Kirk's podcast, and he is on the podcast. He's supposed to be the vice president of the United States, and now he's there like us, fucking Eejits with opinions, right? Now he's on a podcast saying left-wing violence is out of control. There's no comparison. The crazies on the left are crazier than the crazies on the right, and something needs to be done. And by the way, the thing that needs to be dealt with is division in America. But the thing that they are doing is making the division worse. So they're pretending to care when in actual fact, they're increasing the division so that they can divide and conquer. J.D. Vance clearly wants like a Christian nationalist one-party state. That's
well, yeah, but the J.D. Vance spends a lot of the summer in England fishing with David Lammy. David Lammy's now become the deputy prime minister. And David Lammy was always someone that I always regarded as a bit more left wing, but he's become mates with JD Vance, and like families are mates. Apparently, they go to church together and they go fishing together. Like that to me is after what JD Vance did to Zelensky. You'd have thought a proper British politician would go, mate, I can't be your mate because you're out of order. He's got to at some point say that, but he hasn't. They've sucked up. The sucking up that's gone on from the UK to America of late is embarrassing. It's appalling. It's embarrassing. Britain used to feel like a country that had a backbone. And we've ended up now just being a puppy dog to people that we all know, like everyone knows, everybody. I think if you were to sit Keir Starmer down and have a cup of tea with him and go, what do you think of Donald Trump? He'd say he's a fucking lunatic. So why are you kissing his ass? Why is everybody kissing his ass? Why didn't someone call him out? And the thing is today, and this is, I suppose, on one level, an even deeper, more serious subject than anything that we've touched on today. The United Nations Human Rights Office has issued an investigation today saying 100% Israel is committing genocide. That's not for dispute. That's not for an argument. They've even listed people, one of which being the president of Israel, who was having cups of tea in 10 Downing Street last week, as being the main protagonist, Benjamin Netanyahu, and two others. Like it's and what's going to happen? Trump's going to ignore it. Britain's going to tie in with Trump. Everybody's going to kiss their ass. In Spain, the Spanish government have come out and have enforced sanctions on Israel straight away. Has refused the Spanish the Tour de Spain, the cycling race got interrupted because protesters wouldn't let it finish because there was an Israeli team competing. There's a lot of people saying now, for some stupid reason that none of us can understand, Israel's part of the Eurovision Song Contest, even though it's not part of Europe. People are saying that they're not going to compete with that. Israel needs to start being treated like South Africa. Needs to be treated like South Africa was with apartheid. It's a pariah state. They are a murderous, genocidal state, and everyone needs to get off the fence and start saying it.
So the one thing I will say is that the tide of public opinion in the States has definitely turned, and that actually goes across the political divide amongst people, not in the government itself, but amongst the people. You would find very few people that still try to defend, Israel's right, like the whole Israel's right to defend itself thing, which is just, it's kind of a bullshit argument because it's long past any sense of defending itself. So the one tiny positive, which is just that the devastation is so acute that people can no longer hide behind just traditional positions that they once had, that Israel has to defend itself because it's always under attack by their quote unquote enemies. So that is one positive thing, but there's no actual change in the positions of power because, for whatever reason, the American government has.
But the bit but what I don't get is the people in power, where they think it's going to end.
My assumption is, what they think is that eventually, when they just take over all that land and displace all those people, that over time, like all the pariah states, over time, if they have enough economic power, people slowly forget, they just trade with them again, and then they go on with the ultimate goal, which is what they wanted, which was to just take over more land, which I'm assuming that in their private conversations, they say is essentially what the United States is, like a slow taking of land from the indigenous, in the American example, and eventually over time, people just accept it, So I'm assuming that's what they're thinking. They're by the way, this is the dark thinking of the long game of displacing people. I mean, that's what I assume they're thinking.
Yeah, but what I mean is like Netanyahu's in his 70s. Trump's in his 70s. They're not going to see the freaking long game. They're causing all of this now. for a world that they'll never live in. And I just don't get it. And unless you come down to just this pure, obstinate position whereby I have to be right and everyone's wrong, and if that means that we take it as far as possible before people call us out, we just take it. I mean, like the president's what's his name? Right annoying. The president of Israel was in the UK last week, and he was. I never saw a lot, to be honest with you. Boogie Herzog, yeah, Isaac, nickname Boogie, Isaac Herzog, and he was literally on the news saying, "You cannot talk to any Palestinian because they might be involved in Hamas." So, and every member of Hamas is a legitimate target, and everyone associated with the legitimate targets is a legitimate target, and we're killing the women and children because they happen to be near where Hamas are, and it's just, and we're not going to end until every member of Hamas is dead, and you just listening to this man thinking, is this the fucking? He's the president. This is like a 5-year-old coming up with a solution.
People are living in abject horror in Gaza. And by the way, quiet, horrible things happening in the West Bank.
So, but I mean, you know,
but
you've
it's
got
overall.
It's the semantics of it. It's like the language. Settlers are not settlers. They're not settling on something. They're taking it. They're invaders. To go into where someone's house is and go, this is our house now. No legal right to it apart from something that says maybe in the Torah that that's the homeland, and they just go, this is ours, and they kick families out, they burn homes down, they burn farms, and with impunity. I mean, it's. And like we've spoke about whether you get involved in discussions like this, whether you say anything about stuff like this. And I saw a comedian this week doing some really good stuff about realistically, should people in the public eye, famous people, voice their opinion, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. They're just ordinary people making a noise. But when something like this is happening, when something is so crystal clear, it's impossible to not want to vent your anger. It's impossible, and it's hard within our job as well, because I think when people come to see us as comedians, our job is to take them away from all that shit. Our job is to get them in a room for an hour or 2 hours and make them laugh, and that's what you should do. This stuff should come outside of the job, and outside of the reason why people come to see it. I suppose having a podcast allows you an opportunity to vent. Social media allows you an opportunity to vent. Talking to your friends allows you an opportunity to vent. But you still feel incredibly powerless against what is now, without dispute, a criminal activity.
Yeah, and just to conclude that, well said, but the broader picture of societal division across the world, not just in America, is quite frightening, because everything just seems to get amplified quicker, and the danger seems to be rising quicker, and it's a worry. And I know we joked about it before, but I don't know if the way society functions today is going to be able to hold up with the power of the way information spreads. Like, yeah. I really don't know if we're gonna make it.
The most powerful thing that you need to do is control the flow of information.
Well, he sued the New York Trump sued the New York Times today, by the way.
So Trump is suing the New York Times. He's removing people from the White House press corps who he disagrees with their coverage. And Elon Musk owns owns and controls one of the biggest social media platforms in the world. I mean, this is like something out of a comic strip book.
Yeah, man. And don't forget, the hypocrisy is off the charts because they were the anti-cancel culture people. And, you know, I'm very open to the discussion about censorship having gone too far for a period of time in recent times. But the majority of that censorship came from companies, okay? Came from social media companies that felt a sort of a societal pressure, and they gave into it. And some people could argue that was good. Some people can argue that was bad. But that's a calm discussion that could be had about the rise of internet censorship, particularly in and around the pandemic. However, now it's coming directly from the state, and it's not comparable. That's why all these false equivalents between what cancel culture was before and what's happening now are disingenuous, because this is coming directly from the state. It's not coming from Facebook saying you can't post anti-vaccination material. This is Trump saying that I'm going to shut down institutions that do not agree with me.
I mean, as I say, we're literally in the UK rolling out the red carpet for Donald Trump, and at the same time arresting octogenarians for holding up a placard. It's bonkers.
Yeah. So he basically admires the strongman type of government.
Well,
and
he said that the first time I remember when he went over to North Korea. Remember his first presidency, and he was saying about Kim Jong-un. He said it's great, and look, everybody does exactly what he says over here. He said, and he said in the press conference, I wish I could get the same in America. This is the fucking Kim Jong-un.
And Tucker Carlson went over to Russia and did those embarrassing videos where he's like, look how clean, look how great these supermarkets are. Like the whole messaging. Now he's turned, of course, because he's out there on his own. I don't know what the hell's going on with Tucker Carlson, but the point is that he was pushing this whole concept of like, look, isn't this great? You know, this sort of like society that, you know, doesn't really have democracy, but look how organized their society. I was like straight out of the strongman propaganda playbook. You know, so it was basically like, this is great and America is chaos. That literally used to be I had a joke when I was living in China, which was watch the Chinese news. It'll be the government's great, the people are happy, and the West is a mess. That was always the story. So it's like, hey, we have peace and unity here because we have a strong government. And look at the homeless people. Look at the protests in America. Democracy is chaos. And then Tucker goes over there and just parrots that whole thing of like, hey, look how great this is. And look at the chaos back at home. The people, you know, nodding off on fentanyl, you know, like it's bonkers how much we're just so quickly just tuning right into the authoritarian propaganda playbook. And people John Fetterman, the American senator, you know, from Pennsylvania, he's out there saying, oh, Trump is not an authoritarian. And it's like, bro, every day it gets more and more like it. Now, the institutions are somewhat holding up, but they're being eroded day by day. They somewhat are, in that, like, there have been court cases. There have been some adherence to the legal framework up to now, but it feels like it gets eroded more and more day by day. And it's obvious that they're trying to use the Charlie Kirk assassination to fast forward more erosion of the power of anything that can push back against the presidency. And if you listen to Stephen Miller, he's Trump's, you know, right-hand man. If you listen to Stephen Miller, the way he's talking, it's very difficult not to worry about the future. So I'm sorry to our listeners that I am throwing out my catastrophizing onto you, but I think this is a seriously dangerous time.
Oh, listen, and also you've got that Caroline Levitt, the what is she? She's the press secretary, the White House press secretary, who just comes out and
lies,
just storms it. I mean, she's very impressive, but just storms it. He's the best president ever. You're lying. That's fake news. Move on. The whole Epstein thing.
No, the more frightening person for me is Pam Bondi, who's the Attorney General of the United States, not the Attorney General of the Republican Party, the Attorney General of the United States. And by the way, when asked about Melissa Hortman, right, which is the direct comparison of political violence coming from the right, she parroted a lie, which was actually he was a friend of Tim Walz's, that guy, and he was part of the Democrat. She put up a straight up lie. She's the Attorney General, and she's lying on behalf of the propaganda. She's the one that's supposed to be in facts, and she's a propagandist herself. So it's really worrisome how partisan the institutions have become. But anyway, on to the Epstein thing, which just like the amount of Epstein shit that's come out that looks bad for Trump, and he just keeps being one distraction after another. So what were you going to say about it?
So what happened over there for anyone who did miss it? The ambassador to America was Peter Mandelson. Peter Mandelson.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
was an advisor to the Labour Party. I'm not sure. Was well, he was.
Well, he was a big
MP
Blair
recently.
guy. He was a Blairite.
But he's a big Blair guy. He worked with Tony Blair. And I know him. I've met him a few times because he was a chancellor of Manchester University. And recently, and when I say recently, I'd say about 3 or 4 months ago, I was invited to a dinner with Peter Mandelson and a few other people within the media in the UK, because he wanted to talk about how his role as the ambassador in America could help the media industry in the UK. So it was a bit of a roundtable discussion, and at that time, I was thinking. I remember speaking to a few people, thinking, I've heard he's been involved with this Epstein, and people said to me, yeah, but he's the ambassador, so he's obviously been vetted, so whatever might have been the issue can't really be an issue. And because I'd met him in the past before, and I thought, okay, well, it might have just been like a lot of people meet a lot of people, and at the time he was a trade minister for the UK, so he's bound to have met people who could do trade. So you think, okay, fine. So you go to this meeting, fascinating meeting. Absolutely fascinating. One of the things that he said in that meeting, because I kept on saying to him, look, everyone's focused on Trump. Surely there's other people to talk to. And he actually said, no one makes a decision. He said, in the White House, J.D. Vance, no one makes a decision. Everyone waits for Donald Trump to decide what to do. He said, that's why it's chaos. Because he can wake up one morning, decide one thing, and then change his mind by the afternoon. He said, but he is making all the decisions.
Now,
Anyway,
can I ask you a quick question? When you were at that
Yeah.
meeting, at what stage do they sacrifice things in the Illuminati meeting?
Well, I couldn't say.
Like, when did they put on the robes?
We all stood there with our hoods on, and then we were burning like little wicker men and all that stuff. And it was a, because he's obviously a bright guy and he's got a great intellect, but what's happened since is all this stuff's come out, and so people like me who have gone, should I go to this meeting or not? And everyone goes, well, he's obviously been vetted. They've found out that he's been vetted, but the government decided to ignore the advice. And the advice was, look, he's too close to Epstein, you shouldn't have him as the US ambassador. Which, to be fair, I think being close to Epstein when your president was close to Epstein is probably a plus in being the US ambassador. You can probably go, oh, remember those parties we used to go to?
The good old days.
Can we get a better trade deal? So, but to me, it's just like things that shouldn't happen are just happening all over the place. There's just a chaos at the moment, and it just needs a grown up.
But the Epstein thing is also a perfect example of the hypocrisy of what's going on with Trump, because the whole reason that the Epstein thing was like back front and center came from Trump. He talked about it on his campaign. And one of the very first things that they did when he got into power was that stupid PR stunt where they gave all these right-wing influencers, phase 1 of the Epstein files, which was all shit that had already been released anyway. And that blew up in their face because even the Trump supporters were like, this isn't anything. Right. But they were the people that were obsessed with finding out about the great conspiracy of like the dark cabal of power that was connected to Jeffrey Epstein. They were the ones that wanted that issue back up high on the agenda. And then when it started blowing up in Trump's face, he started saying it was a Democratic hoax. And he's the one that's been trying to sort of like, get the, put it all back in the bag. And at every turn, he keeps not being able to put it back. It keeps getting worse for him. The connections keep getting stronger from him, stronger from the people that he's connected to. And yet, somehow, every time it seems like now they can't, deny these connections, the distractions happen, and now they're not talking about it again. It's crazy. The fact that these people just keep and I think they keep allowing it because fundamentally, they want to keep pushing. They want the momentum to continue of eroding away what they perceive as society being too liberal, that civil rights were a problem. There's so much dark stuff that's behind it that people say isn't, that's hidden behind so much of the momentum that's heading that way at the moment.
It's mad. I mean, there's a madness to it where you just think there has to be an end to it. I think certain things have to happen. I think, and when society starts getting a balance, and it'll start getting a balance when nations start treating Israel the way they should treat Israel. When people like Donald Trump starts getting called to account by the institutions in America that if they do not act, they're not going. There's bright people over there. You can't let this go on.
I have to tell you, I have a useless degree in history, which we've mentioned many times, but history will tell you that the only thing that brings back equilibrium is war and suffering. And those periods of war and suffering can go on for quite a long time. So my hope is low, but normally this is an uplifting podcast, but this is
we may not put this one out.
No, this is going out. This is going out, man. No, these times
Brad,
are crazy. Sorry. What the thing that might help, but my worry is that it's not even going to be allowed to happen, is I think that the Republicans are going to they're going to have a bad election season because this isn't that popular in America, the shit that's going down, This level of chaos is not playing well with the people. And the tariffs and a lot of these things were just not popular decisions. And I think they will do badly in the midterms. And if, by the grace of God, these election actually happens and the institutions are allowed to continue to function the way they're supposed to, that will be a chance to push back against some of this chaos. But I'm telling you, I really feel like the last couple of days has been the beginning of them trying to create a scenario where those elections don't happen.
Yeah. I mean, what's happened with Charlie Kirk was obviously terrible, but it also
I know it's so. I was very. By the way, we didn't talk about it enough. It was very upsetting because obviously, I don't agree with this guy at all, but he's very famous in the sense that I have watched him a lot. And which means that you feel a connection regardless of your disagreements. So, and by the way, I'm not trying to exaggerate what it felt for me, but what I mean is violence is horrible, but when you feel a connection in some way, it hits you deeper. And I talk to a lot of people, and the mindlessness, the senselessness of it hit me deep. And the tragedy of it, of his wife and children, like it hurts deeply. But the problem is that this happens in America all the time. But the crazy thing is that America is so divided now that the whole fundamental issue of how this crime can actually happen in the first place doesn't even come up, which is it's too easy to get guns. But
Yeah.
that's just like
Well,
out the window now. Now we're so desensitized to that we don't even discuss that. We discuss
Don't even
whether it was
discuss it.
right-wing ideology or left-wing ideology that radicalized this kid. When it's always young men. It's a young men being radicalized on Lyme disease. Doesn't matter what radicalizes them. It's always young men.
Yeah.
So, but that's not the discussion that we're having.
No, but
that's not the discussion.
I did at a show at BBC One Christmas special. I can't remember, 2016, something like that. And we had Simon Brodkin on, who's a great comic. And the clip of him on that show circulated recently, where he's on stage and he's talking to someone in the front row who happens to be American. He goes, "Oh, you're from America?"
Yeah.
He said, "Yeah." He said, "You've got a problem with guns, haven't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Let me explain how it works." He said, if I was to give you a mobile telephone," he said, "do you think you would be more likely to make a phone call if you've got a mobile telephone than if you haven't got a mobile telephone?" And he said, "That's the answer to your guns. There's just too many guns. Some people are getting shot, and it'll never end. It'll never end." And this person, I mean, Charlie Kirk, I didn't know, to be honest. I'd not really heard of him, and then I've looked into it recently, and I didn't agree with his views, and I didn't agree actually with his approach. He seemed quite what's the word?
Antagonistic.
Quite antagonistic. However, what he did do is go out and do the chat, have the debate, sort of bring it on a little bit, so at least you could challenge him. He wasn't a keyboard warrior, but you can't have people you disagree with just shooting you. I
mean, the whole thing is horrible. But part of the problem is that they're trying to shut down. You also are not allowed. So a woman got fired from the Washington Post because all she did was actually post one of the things that Charlie Kirk said. And, he was a contrarian and he did say some outlandish shit. And, I never felt I don't feel the need right now to discuss, like some of the shit that he said, because the discussion right now is really about political violence, America being so divided. But I also just don't think that we can dismiss the fact that divided society is such that this type of rhetoric online is radicalizing people. Like, we need to calm it down. Everything needs to calm down. And what's happening from the top is the opposite. They're actually ramping it up to push their agenda with the Charlie Kirk stuff. Like, it's so horrible. But when immediately the powers that be go to take advantage of the situation in a way where there's people out there sort of claiming the moral high ground about, first of all, they're exaggerating that all these left-wing people celebrated the death of Charlie Kirk. Like, it's not even true. They'll find some examples online, but there's always fucking whack jobs online after horrible things happen. But, here's the truth. Like, I don't know anybody that's celebrating it. And they're going out with the moral high ground, suggesting that that's what happened, that left-wing people are more inclined to do that. But literally, Charlie Kirk himself. And the problem is that when you point these things out, people say you're being disrespectful, but Charlie Kirk himself championed. He made a comment saying that you would be a right-wing hero if you bailed out the guy that hammer beat Nancy Pelosi's husband. So, the hypocrisy, it's just so blatantly out there, but somehow you're not allowed to talk about it. And by the way, I'm not trying to say that Charlie Kirk in any way deserved anything that happened to him. I'm not talking about that. But what I am talking about is, let's not try to pretend that all the online grifting from the left and from the right, they've all been indulging in these incredibly divisive issues for a long time and been dismissing the seriousness of political violence for a long time. This stuff is out there. We can't have suddenly no free speech because the guy that claimed he was all for free speech got killed, because it's so horrible. But this divisive language has been out there for a while, and it's part of the problem. We need to calm it down, and you're doing the exact opposite. the rhetoric is so dangerous. Somebody eventually is going to have to take responsibility for that.
But can you see it? Can you see who stands against Donald Trump over there?
Well, I mean, all the people the Democrats, obviously, but
Yeah,
there's
but
nobody
what I
that
mean,
matters.
it's anyone
There's
stepping
nobody
up.
that matters that stands against Donald Trump. Thomas Massey.
What-
There's Marjorie Taylor
about
Greene, oddly
Gavin
enough, when it
Newsom?
came. Yeah, but he's Democrat.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Stands who when it comes round again with whatever is left of America at the end of
Who
this.
can say,
because
man?
Trump will be arguing that he can go for a third term, and if he can't, he'll be presenting somebody in his image who's likely
in
to
the
do
short
it.
term. In the short term, I'm more hoping in some way that eventually some Republicans will decide that it's in their interests, because there's some Republicans in places where it might be good for them to stand against Donald Trump, that some of them, because there's not many needed, will start to vote against some of his positions, but they're all running scared from him right now. I mean, this guy Thomas Massey has taken a stand against it, particularly on the Epstein thing. Marjorie Taylor Greene, oddly enough, took a stand against him on the Epstein thing. But see, the thing is that the Charlie Kirk thing has brought them all back together, And it's the Charlie Kirk thing is so sad, and they're using it in a way that's, I mean, in terms of propaganda, it's ingenious because they stifle all discussion around it while they then use it to further their agenda. Even though I would argue that, like, the availability of guns is such a huge part of it, and they're the ones that are protecting that. But, I'm not even interested in the blame game. I don't think that we should have to have a discussion about, the things that they're having a discussion about, because it's just about some fucking lunatic kid that lost his mind and decided to do something insane. That's what makes me laugh. It's like, I'm going to have all the institutions I believe in cracked down on as if me and this fucking kid have anything in common. It's crazy.
But what's going to happen? I mean, so that kid, his dad was the one who told him to go to the police.
Yeah, but
you kind of go, wow, that's a tough conversation, isn't it?
I mean, I can't imagine.
Can't imagine, can you?
I mean, I can't imagine any of these parents of school shooters, like violent action, the kid, Thomas Crooks, that took a shot at Trump. I can't imagine what it's like to have to come to terms with that, so, I mean, apparently he wanted to kill himself and the dad wouldn't let him. But, this is all this news is fresh, so all that stuff, it's very heavy, man. But, listen, we've talked about it a lot, but I do feel like I don't mind that this was a bit depressing, because in America anyway, this is how a lot of people are feeling.
Yeah, and I think they're feeling the same at home. I think they're feeling the same here. We're frustrated. We had a government that came in with a whacking majority and are constantly ballsing things off. They've done one good thing today, which is to start the process for the Hillsborough Law, which is a law that means that all people in official positions need to have a duty of candour, which didn't happen when the Hillsborough tragedy happened. And a duty of candour means basically tell the truth. They didn't tell the truth. So that's a law, but that's a process. That'll take a while to go through Parliament. But everything else, man, honest to God, you think, Jesus Christ, kissing the ass of Donald Trump, having the Israeli president over, doing the thing that he did with Mandelson. There's, as well as a lot of domestic stuff that's gone on. You just think, my God, will somebody please get a grip of the reins? And then you look at it and think, would you want the job? Like, who would want the job? Because you're on a hiding to nothing when you're trying to catch up with social media, when you're trying to catch up with messaging, when you're trying to get a policy that everyone's going to agree with. So you've got to pick a line and stick to it. And what is clear that at the moment, the power of America and Donald Trump is such that everybody will compromise on what their true belief is in order just to get through the meeting.
Yeah, or to stay in power, or to get a little piece of the pie.
Yeah.
That's what's going on. You know,
Yeah.
the one thing I
mean,
will
I'm
say
on
is that
holiday.
the sun.
I'm thinking about all this shit, and I'm on holiday. Can I just say?
Actually, the tragedy of what's going on in the world hasn't really hit me. I haven't understand the depth of the tragedy until I realized that John can't enjoy lying by the pool in Majorca in the way that he deserves
No,
to.
you know what it is. I'll be honest with you,
I'm joking, by the way. I'm joking.
No, it's a big thing. I sent Deirdre O'Kane a text this morning saying, because I know Deirdre's done a few gigs for Palestine. I've spoke to a few people over there who are vocal on social media, other comics supporting Palestine. I said, look, if someone's going to organize, I don't want to organize a fundraiser. I don't want to be the face of it, but I will support anyone. If there's fundraising, I know Deirdre's done a few in Ireland. And I said, I'll come and do it. I'll come and do it. But this is getting more and more to the point where I'm going, you can't not say anything. And when that
you can't be on the sidelines.
It can't be on the fence. And when the UN report came out today, I go, that's it now. All games are up. All disputes, anything that you put out there, if someone goes, oh, you don't know, I go, well, look, I fucking believe the UN more than I believe the Israeli government. So therefore, I can now get off the fence. And it's embarrassing that you say get off the fence, but it's not that I want, because I don't want to use what platform I've got to ram my ideas or my thoughts down people's posts, because I see our job as different. I think we have a role in society in what we do by lifting the mood of people. But sometimes when things are so in your face, you go, right, this will take you away from the normal joy and happiness I want to give you, but I've got to get this off my chest because this ain't right. This just ain't right. And so that now that that's happened, I suppose that's what's led to this today. This podcast has come at a time when I've just been sat talking to Melanie about it and thinking, I'm like you, Des, because we have a job where you have to read the room, and you have to read how people are feeling about things. It's very, very difficult to have that instinct and then see something so blatantly wrong and not sense it.
100%. Well said, John, at the end of the episode.
Thank you. Well,
that was John Bishop there talking about how he's finding the world hard to deal with today. And we're back to you, Brad, over in the studio.
Clip that up, Brad.
BBC Radio 4 here. This episode. Welcome to Outing Yourself as Depressed with John Bishop, Des Bishop, and Bradley Hurley. Are you finding the world Are you finding the world difficult to deal with? Well, listen to this podcast, and you will realize you're not on your own. Over to you, Brad.
Hey, come and join the Despondents. Give us a like, follow, and subscribe if you're Despondents as well.
Yes.
If you want someone to share your misery with, come and like, follow, and subscribe.
Are you an atheist with no hope for the future? Come on board.
Are you holding up a placard right now with the fear of being arrested? Come and listen to us.
Yeah. Are you scrubbing all your YouTube videos from during the pandemic where you complained about Donald Trump?
Yeah, think about it.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, just as the sun goes behind the tower of the Rio. Anyway, I'm in Vegas all week. If you want to come, have a laugh. And it's great to be here.
Yeah, this is it. Much. I mean, to be fair, can I just say, however this ends up being edited, I'm sure Brad's doing a good job of it. I think the core of what we're saying is probably reflecting what a lot of people say. And one thing I will say, like, I absolutely believe this, is that this platform to be able to do this is great. But I do believe, like, going to be entertained is something different. People have the right to leave all this shit at the door. Whether you're going to go and see a band, whether you're going to go and see a play, whether you're going to watch a film, don't carry the burden of the world with you. Allow yourself the opportunity for lightness, because if you don't, it's fucking overpowering. Once you open the doors and think about it, it's too much. And so anybody who's never seen me and Des do stand-up, you're not going to come and get this type of lecture. You're going to come and laugh. That's what we do. This is when we're not on stage. But on stage, our job is to fucking make you forget all this shit.
Honestly, I can't concentrate anymore because since the sun went behind the Rio, the lighting is so much better and it's annoying me.
You've never looked better.
I've
no
never
one's
looked
gonna
better
make it
since the
this far.
sun went behind the fucking building. I look fucking 10 years younger since the sun went behind the fucking Rio, man.
Yeah.
God damn
I'm
it.
doing an impassioned thing, saying I know there's 30% less of you, but go see Des. Honestly, he's funny.
I was just thinking, I look like I took Botox now. This fucking lighting is so good. God damn it. Anyway, back to you, Brad. Back to you. All right, let's get out of here. Thanks,
Let's get out
everybody.
of here, yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. If you've stayed with us, thank you.